Welcome to Aspire to Lead, where we empower educators and school leaders to grow, inspire, and thrive. I'm your host, Joshua Stamper, author, speaker, and leadership coach, bringing you conversations that spark transformation, challenge the status quo in education, and equip you to make a lasting impact on your campus or in your district. For more information and resources, visit joshstamper.com as we're looking to ascend to new leadership heights together. Welcome back to Aspire to Lead. I'm so excited to have this wonderful guest. I've been able to connect with him before this recording. He's doing amazing work all over this country. I'm so excited to really dive into this initiative that he's got going on, which is very unique. And I know it's changing the lives of many students and the people that are working in education. Before we dive in, though, I wanted to say, David Spellmon, thank you so much for being on Aspire to Lead.
Now, thank you, Josh, for having me on your wonderful platform. And it's just always an honor to be on, these airways talking about the work that I do. So I appreciate it greatly.
Yes, I got a chance to connect. You told me about the things that you've been working on. I got so excited. I was like, oh, you got to be on the podcast. And so it's been fun to hear, all of these different things that you're doing. And before we dive into that, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself and to let everyone know about your educational leadership journey.
All right. So what's going on, Aspire to Lead community? My name is David Spellmon, also known as the Beloved One, because for those who did not know, the meaning of the name David is beloved or friend. I also go by the Positive Archer because as the company that I created, Positive Archer Solutions, I am a Sagittarius, hence the Archer part. I like to think of myself as an unorthodox educator. So I wrote a curriculum. I work with students. I'm also an educator. To this day, I work for a school district, but I did not go the traditional route. I did not go to a teacher prep program. I was not that young person that said, hey, I wanted to be a teacher. Never was my ministry. I always had roles dealing with behavior and or community mental health. That is my background, psychology major, but just through the travels of working in community mental health and also public, private, charter K-12s, I found like my calling. And just working with people, whether it is the students and educators in school or the communities that help bolster what we're doing in our schools.
All right, you talked about your program. I want to dive in a little bit deeper in that. So what was the thing that you notice in education or even just with young people that made you want to kind of, create something to help them with their social emotional learning and other aspects in their life?
Absolutely. So the name of the curriculum, it's actually a book and a curriculum, but the title is Just Like Music, Social Emotional Learning Inspired by Hip Hop. And to your question, with me, like I said, not being the teacher teaching somebody's curriculum, I always had the behavior roles, whether behavior specialist, MTSS, all the things. And when I would get kids that were perceived as doing something wrong in class, we would just have to reset them and, get them back to being in somebody's classroom. And what I learned is the strategies and tactics that we were using were not connecting with our students. If we said we wanted them to have a higher self-worth, more self-confidence, increase their conflict resolution skills, the things we were doing in school or the conversations were not helping us reach that final destination. So like I said, whether it was community mental health or actually working in the schools, I just saw a disconnect from the tactics that we were using and the success rate of these things that we wanted kids to achieve. And as one of my mentors challenged me, I would always, come home complaining about different things. And he just said, well, why don't you create something? And that's all it took for me to, kind of be that spark that led me to doing all this great work that I'm doing across the country now.
So what was that connection point? What was that light bulb moment for you to say, okay, what I'm doing is resonating and I need to build off that? Because I agree. I've had mentors speaking to me, but they don't always give you that solution, right? They just challenge you to start seeking out. And so I'm wondering what that point was where you saw, okay, this is exactly what I need to lean into in regards to music. And this is going to be the change that our students need, where it's going to start to change their behavior. And like you said, help them academically, help them stay in the classroom, help them also interact in a positive way with their peers and with adults.
All right, so we're about to go down the rabbit hole now at this point in
Let's do
time,
it.
Josh. Get ready. So for all the listeners, I'm sure you guys have seen the movie The Hangover, and there's that one part where Alan is on, I want to say he's either on the blackjack table or the craps table, and it kind of pans up and is doing all these math equations in his head to get them to make the money.
It's a
When
meme.
my yeah, when my mentor said, "Why don't you create something?" Something inside of me just I had that formula going through my head about hip hop because I am a child of hip hop, very prevalent in the culture. But then on an academic sense, we do a lot with social and emotional learning. And if you look at any definition of social emotional learning, you'll see this constant theme of knowledge of self, knowing your innate strengths, your innate weaknesses, and how you show up in the world. Little did people know there are four original elements of hip hop. There would be no hip hop without the DJ. Then the next element is what people think of hip hop today, the MC, the person actually reciting the lyrics. You have breakdancing, B-boys, B-girls, and then you have graffiti. Those were the four original elements of hip hop. There is a less often fifth element that kind of brings it home, knowledge of self. If you have knowledge of self, you truly understand who you are, how you operate, but then knowing that you may not know about another culture. Hey, how can I seek relationships with people that don't look like me? How can I first seek to understand that all of those themes come together in social and emotional learning? And if we really want to break it down, we could say hip hop is social emotional learning because of that knowledge of self. But then going back into that meme, it sparked for me way back when. It's an album by A Tribe Called Quest, which is my favorite hip hop group of all time. The album was called Midnight Marauders. And in one of the interludes, there is a narrator, and it's kind of like you're on an elevator. You got the music playing in the background, and it says, 7 times out of 10, we listen to our music at night. Thus spawned the title of this programming, Midnight Marauders. She further goes on to say, the word maraud means to loot. In this case, we loot for ears. I am 39 years old. I have been in education for damn near all of my life. I have not once heard an educator at the K-12 or collegiate level define marauders. Hip hop defined the word marauders for me. And I understand, you can say hip hop has a lot of, negative things that are prevalent. I get that. But if we're saying hip hop is negative on one side of the coin, let's flip the other side and say, hey, what are the values you can gain from hip hop? Where is the positivity you can gain from hip hop? And that's really what I focus on. How you can use hip hop to boost up social and emotional learning, to boost up literacy skills, to boost up these things that we say kids need. And that's going to always be my claim to fame.
And it's amazing. You just said your age, right? And it stuck with you for that long. It's not even that you just learned that word, but you memorized the lyrics and it's stuck with you for the duration of probably your entire life, right? It made a huge impact on you. I want to talk a little bit more about the program and some of the details, because obviously, you kind of unpacked the emotional language as far as the music, the storytelling, self-expression. Obviously, it's an art form, but I want to talk about how that connects to some of the social emotional learning aspects, right? Self-awareness, empathy, emotional regulation. So with your book, your curriculum, like how does that all connect as far as the music and the hip hop piece, and of course, SEL?
Yeah, man, it's a natural connection, at least from my perspective, it is. There are so many lyrics that you can pull from, and I'm saying hip hop because that's the method that I'm using, but you can find it in pop songs, you can find it in country, rock, reggae, reggaeton for my, the Latino listeners. There are SEL competencies found in all genres of music. So let me just say that first and foremost. But the way that I do it, like I said, with my culture being hip hop, so many examples I can pull from. And the unique thing about my curriculum is it's not chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Every chapter is a city, and the city is inspired from the artist, like where they're from. So for example, the chapter New Orleans is inspired by an artist named Electronica, who is from New Orleans. And there's a song that he has called Exhibit C. And the line that I chose to use was, you either build or destroy. Right there, I talk about in that chapter, every interaction that you have with somebody, you have the opportunity to build a good relationship or destroy it by the things you say or the way you treat them. That is the SEL competency of relationship skills. Boom, like mind blown right there. That's just one example. But going back to my name, there's a chapter in the book Harlem, and the title of the song is called Beloved, where I learned the meaning of the name David is beloved or friend. That is the opening line of the song. So now we're in the competency of self awareness. And in that chapter, and I failed to mention, every chapter is essentially a workshop. So not only are you getting a chapter that connects to SEL competencies, but you have activities that go with it. So going back to the Harlem chapter, I found an assessment where students can take, and it gives them their top 5 strengths. But then we also play on that whole theme of your name, your first name. So they get to make an acrostic poem based on their strengths that they just found out about and the meaning of their name. Not everybody knows the meaning of their first name, but now that self-awareness piece, you get the opportunity to really dive into that. So there's so many like unique activities in this curriculum, but once again, built on the foundation of hip hop. Most people would say hip hop doesn't belong in the school. I beg to differ every day, because I spent blood, sweat, and tears writing a book and curriculum that goes against that notion. And it, to your point, it resonates with so many because they see the through lines. In Caribbean culture, we call it a mashup. In the education field, we call it a crosswalk. I can sit there and give you the crosswalk between these lyrics, these SEL competencies, what English language arts standards they boost up, all in a span of 45 minutes to an hour.
All right, David, I want to dive a little bit deeper into that because I'm curious if you've had some pushback, right, with maybe some educators, maybe some leaders, maybe some hesitation, and like recognizing that the genre might have some negative connotations or negative lyrics or whatever. And if they're feeling that, like, how are you making sure that they understand like there's more within the music, right? As far as advocacy or resilience, community building. I mean, you've talked about a lot of positive things, but I'm just curious about that conversation to massage and say, no, actually, there's a lot of amazing things within this music and connecting it and making it relevant to SEL.
Gotcha, man. And it's the same analogy I've been using for many years. Let's say you go to a restaurant, you love burgers, but you know what? You don't like lettuce or tomatoes. If that burger has it on the menu, you simply ask the waiter, hey, let me get that steak burger, no lettuce or tomatoes. You wouldn't say all burgers are evil, all burgers are disgusting. But I think that's what we do with hip hop, because you can find elements of misogyny, violence, drug reference. We have kind of thrown the baby out with the bathwater. But there's so many examples of hip hop promoting positivity. So to the point, when I have conversations with educators or organizations interested in using the curriculum, I show them we do not talk about the negative aspects. There's no profanity in any of the work, any of the chapters. So it begs the question, are you letting the stigmatization of hip hop stop you from connecting with the students that need it? And I'm not just saying Black students, because a lot of people think, oh, this is only for the Black kids. No, any student who enjoys hip hop culture, it's in the statistics. I don't know if it's true today, year of our Lord 2026, but at one point, hip hop was the most consumed genre in America. Guess who was not the biggest population of people in America? Black people. So other people are enjoying hip hop, but to the point, yeah, they may be enjoying some of the negative aspects, but I'm talking about the essence of hip hop. When I say I utilize hip hop, I'm really taking it back to what it began from, not what it is currently, because it has been co-opted and capitalism made it what it is because you got to get the record sales. But when you really think about hip hop, it really just start with the community. And I always like to elevate the 4 pillars as well. I would ask any educator in the world, not just in America, if your classroom had these 4 themes, would you be a happy teacher? And those 4 themes are peace, love, unity, and having fun. 10 out of 10 teachers would recommend. That is what hip hop was built upon. So when we really look at the essence, okay, wow, I didn't know this, but that's cool. Let me elevate it and enlighten you. Hip hop in its original form is not all of these negative things, because hip hop really was the voice for the voiceless. And that's point blank, period. People created hip hop because they couldn't be on the local TV shows. They couldn't get their voice heard in any other way. So they would come and congregate in the parks and they would have microphones and they would talk about what was going on in their communities. And that's really what hip hop is, or that's what it started from, I should say.
For sure. Dude, when I was growing up, everyone was listening to hip hop and rap. And that was, I mean, I ran with a crowd that was very diverse, but we all were listening to it. We were all consuming it. And to your point, it didn't matter who it was. We all were enjoying it. And I think that's still today. Like you said, the statistics show obviously the popularity of it, and it can connect with everyone. It truly is an art form that connects to a lot of folks. So I love that analogy too of the burger, especially because I love a good burger. So I want to make it exactly the way I like it too. So let's talk about the next steps, right? So we've got a teacher, we've got a leader, a superintendent that's listening right now. They're like, oh, this makes so much sense. I need something to have those 4 elements, right, that you were talking about, those pillars, and they want to bring this in. What's the first step for them to have that hip hop culture, the lyrics, and the connection to SEL practices? So what would you recommend that first step be for them?
The first step would be to be authentic. I run across a lot of people. It's like, well, I don't listen to hip hop, or even people who are of the hip hop culture. I don't rap either. So I'm not an MC, but this is the thing. When you look at certain lyrics and you see how they can influence, that is the power of it. If we say, Shakespeare was a great, literary person, Socrates has all these great adages, you really can find some of those same elements in hip hop music, in the lyrics. And that's really the basis of it. Because it's not even so much about listening to the music. It is the power of the lyrics of that artist. I'll give you another example. In the chapter Chicago, I use a line by the artist Common. Now, I'm sure that when I talk about Common these days, my kids are like, oh, he's in John Wick.
The actor.
Yeah, he's in John Wick. And I'm like, he is in John Wick, but trust me, he was a great lyricist before that. And the line that I use for that chapter is, we have arms, but won't reach for the skies. So many people can resonate with that. It's like, you know what? I'm existing in this world. I'm doing my thing. But you know what? There's so much more you can reach for. Like, why are you putting a limit on your greatness? Maybe it's a societal thing. Maybe it's from, the neighborhood you come from or your parents. But you truly can do anything you want in this world, but you have to believe it first. So I can just give, a school leader, anybody, just so many examples of, hey, this is how I take this hip hop lyric and connect it to something of substance. And these are the activities that go along with it. And these are the literary skills that we do, because every chapter, the first question is, what is the theme? That's reading comprehension. So it's really like that medicine and the candy metaphor. Yes, the hook is, hey, we're going to use hip hop. Kids will probably get excited, but then when they really get to it, oh my goodness, I'm writing down definitions. Hey, I'm figuring out, I read this passage. What did it mean to me? We're really giving them what they should be learning in school anyway. We're just doing it in a more culturally responsive way. And I would be remiss if I didn't say Zaretta Hammond, Culture Responsive Teaching in the Brain. A lot of the work that I'm doing is built off of the foundation that she created. And I know Gloria Lanson Billings as well. They're kind of in that same camp, but this is not something I just created yesterday. This is work that's been being done, and I'm just bolstering it from my perspective. And that's the hope here. Somebody listening, you might do something similar with Taylor Swift lyrics. I'm sure there's a population for that, or Bad Bunny lyrics. So many great lyrics that I'm sure he has, when translated, can help boost up, a population of people. So this is just how we are operating to get the best out of our children, using the things that they're interested in.
Yeah, think about the power of connection too, in the sense that we're doing something right now in their world. And then, for instance, you're talking about breaking down lyrics, and then they see that as far as a skill. And now we're going back over to Shakespeare. If we just started with Shakespeare, they may be like, that's not relevant to me. Like that's too far away. That was, hundreds of years ago. Who cares about that? But if you can then bring something and start with something that's going on in their world, now they start to see there's a connection, there's an overlap. And then, what we're doing over here with, some rap lyrics might be the exact same thing we're going to do with Shakespeare, telling a story, right? And breaking it down. And the thing that we think it's saying actually is probably something completely different, but it takes some time to actually review that. And I think that would make a lot more sense to our kids now and make it more relevant than just starting with the Shakespeare side of things.
But to your point, it's a transferable skill.
Totally.
If they can tell me the theme of this hip hop curriculum, they have the ability to identify the theme in any form. And I think in education, we get so caught up on the way we get there. We want them to be able to have reading comprehension. The method we get there really shouldn't matter, but I get it because schools have their curriculum, they have their
Of
pacing
course.
guides. I get all the things, but at the end of the day, we want students that have the ability to do the things that we said we want them to do before they graduate high school.
Totally. And it's something that they're going to use all the way into their adulthood. So we need to make sure that it's something that sticks and is something that they see relevance in.
Absolutely.
David, you got some fun projects coming up, so I want to touch on these real quick. So you got a professional development series where you're working with teacher artists. So will you just share a little bit about that and give everyone an opportunity to learn about this amazing project?
Oh, absolutely. So I definitely want to, say a big shout out to the Kane Center for the Arts, which is North Charlotte. And they have they have a lot of different programming. But one thing they found out is like, hey, we have these teaching artists to kind of like my story. They're not traditional educators, but we just want to give them some more strategies and resources to be able to connect with the kids that they're working with in this after school program. So of course, they found out about the curriculum. They went crazy because they're like, oh my God, I've never seen anybody use hip hop in this way. Would you mind talking to our educators about making it relevant to our kids, being creative, being innovative? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm the man for the job. And this is the thing with my curriculum, I wrote it for high school students specifically, but you can do so many things from kindergarten all the way up. And I'm just kind of giving them the framework to, so to speak. They don't have to do exactly what I do. They don't have to even utilize my curriculum because they may be working with fifth graders. But what I'm going to be doing is showing them how can you bring yourself fully. One of the things I'm going to talk about them. So this is, a little secret. We talk about pedagogy all the time, and people really don't understand what that means. The art of teaching. If it's an art, that means it's going to look different for each individual stepping into that role. So one of the big things that I want them to take away from the sessions is, what is your teaching persona? Mine is clear as day. I'm a hip hop educator. I use the elements of hip hop to boost you up in an academic setting. Even if you are somebody that loves hip hop, that may not be your teaching persona, but I need to help you identify what that is so you can bring it to life for those students. So I'm truly excited about that opportunity.
That's so fun. All right. You also have a workshop with Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and I'd love for you to speak about that too.
So they tapped in with me because they have a component of mentoring. So I am going to be doing a workshop that's based around that Chicago chapter because I gave you the lyric and I'll just recite it again. We have arms, but won't reach for the skies. And that comes from my time in mental health. I had a client who asked me a very poignant question. He said, Mr. Spellmon, why do you do this job? I looked around for a second. I said, sir, what do you mean? He said, it's not a Black man's job to help people. I said, what? I said, where did you get that from? So he just started kind of telling me, most of the Black men I see are either, a mechanic, a barber, or an athlete or a rapper. And I said, oh, that's where you think the ceiling is. I said, sir, you can be whatever you want to be. And that's when that lyric came back into my head. You have arms, but you won't reach for the skies. Society, your neighborhood, the people in your family said, you can only be here. I said, you got to go against that. So from that chapter, at the end of it, students have to create a mentor contract. So I was his, counselor, but at the same time, I was mentoring that young person. So the activity that we'll be doing with the Big Brothers Big Sisters program is their mentee and the mentor will be there together and having them create that contract. So I'm gonna have it twofold. I want that mentee to write, what do they want from this mentor? And I want the mentor to kind of outline the expectations they have for their mentee. So I just think that's going to be a powerful exercise. And hopefully the relationship will be better moving forward after the session.
Yeah. Relationship agreements are huge. And I think it also just to give time and space for them to work that out. Because a lot of folks think about rules, things not to do versus this is what I expect from you within the relationship. So that's going to be really powerful for everyone involved. So that's awesome. All right. I've been flashing up your website and we're going to talk about how folks can connect with you both on your website and social media. But before we do that, I just want to get an actual step, right? For those who are listening, I hope they're consuming this, taking notes, but I also want them to go and do something. We talked about first steps, David, as far as what they could do potentially on the campus, but I'm going to change it up a little bit for you. So an action item, what is it that they can do tomorrow, next week for aspiring and current leaders to enhance their leadership journey?
Man, I can't even think of the person who said the quote, but I have two recommendations. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV.
I
But the
write like a
first one,
doctor and I don't get paid like one. That's how I work.
the first thing that I need aspiring leaders to do, and like I said, this quote, I can't think of who came up with it, but they said, in order to lead, you must serve. So how can you serve, build equity with the people in your care if they see you serving, and then they come to find out, oh, you're the leader, so you don't mind rolling up your sleeves to do the dirty work with us. So that's the first thing. If you are a leader, you must be a servant as well. But then the second thing, they say growth happens on the other side of your comfort zone. I need you to connect with somebody at your level outside of your community. And let me go further, outside of your state. I need you to reach out. If you're a principal, reach out to a principal in another state, another country, maybe a university. Maybe that's not even an education. Maybe the CEO of a nonprofit. Anybody who's working with a similar population, I need you to connect with somebody outside of your general area to kind of pick their brain, because what they're doing may spark something in you to bring back to your home community. That's one of my biggest things. People get so caught up on, their, and I'm even go, very micro, their 10-mile radius. There's some people that don't even leave that. They go to work, their grocery stores in the same area that they, all the things. But that's so limited. Life is bigger than what's going on in your little section of the world. So I think connecting with people in other places, gleaming from their greatness, will just allow you to be a better, whatever position that you're in education, in nonprofit, in community organizing, but just connecting with others. But then, like I said, that first point, being a servant. So aspire to lead nation. You have your marching orders. Get to it.
For sure. Yeah, a lot of folks, when I was mentoring, trying to build up leaders on my campus, they'd always be surprised about various things. And I was always saying the thing that's the greatest piece of your contract is duties as assigned. Mm-hmm. You're going to do 1,000 things that you never thought you're going to do, but it's that servanthood. You need to make sure that you're doing what's needed in that moment. And it's going to look a lot of different ways and a lot of different days. So make sure that you're ready to step up and fill in where you're needed. And of course, that's going to go a long way. Second piece with this podcast, I've had the opportunity to speak to people all over the world, Australia, China, South America, and the perspectives that we're gaining through those conversations is huge. And some days I wish I had these conversations when I was at the campus level. That's going to really help me. But it's just a testament to what you're saying. We need to make connections, and it needs to be outside of our bubble, because sometimes we get real comfortable with the setting that we're in, and we need to push those boundaries to learn from other folks, different experiences. Yeah, I think both those suggestions are brilliant, David. I'm so glad that those are the actionable steps that you put out there for the audience. I want to talk about how folks can connect with you next. So like I said, I'll flash it up once again as far as your website. I want folks to be able to go there. I'm going to have that in the show notes for them. But is there any other social media places that you want them to follow you in also, in addition to your website?
Absolutely. So, of course, if you are watching it, you'll see the website on the screen. But if it's only on the audio version, positivearchersolutions.com is the website. You can also find me on LinkedIn at my government name, David Spellmon. If Instagram is your social media of choice, and I have to, really break it down because people look at it always, with a weird eye. My name on Instagram is Mr. Happy, but the spelling will throw you off. So if it is MRJAPPI, and I have it like that because I grew up around a lot of Latinos. I'm an honorary Latino from what my friends tell me. So if you see the name Jose, you wouldn't say Jose, you would say Jose. So my name on Instagram is Mr. Happy, MRJAPPI. But then also positivearcher@gmail.com is my email. And I just look forward to connecting to, like I said, with individuals outside of Charlotte, outside of North Carolina, and simply collaborating. And here is a gift that I will give to the Aspire to Lead Nation. If you send me an email, I will send you a free worksheet about music and social emotional learning. That is a gift from me to you all.
Awesome. So I'll make sure the email is in the show notes for everyone. Otherwise, you can head over to joshsam.com. Every episode has its own page where it's super simple for you to click on those links for the website, social media, email for David. That's an awesome gift. So I want you to take advantage of that. And then, David, when they go to your website, will you just share out a little bit about the services? You had talked about the book and the curriculum. Is there anything else that they're going to find when they head over to positivearchersolutions.com?
Absolutely. I do a lot of workshops. Man, I've touched, this entire nation. I like to tell people I've been in San Francisco doing some work in the Bay Area, then all the way to Rochester, New York, and many places in between. And it really is, of course, there's the curriculum, but then just additional workshops. If there's a conference, even with the collegiate level, I do a lot of workshops, and it's not just based around the chapters in the book. If we sit down and have a conversation about, hey, this is what's going on in my community, this is what's plaguing us, we can create something. That's the beauty of not just hip hop, but music. It is ever changing. So the work that we do should be ever changing. So if I understand the pain points of your community, let's create a workshop together and let's bring something innovative to, wherever you're at.
Yeah. So everyone listen, make sure that you're connecting with David, making sure that you're bringing in this wonderful information onto your campus, into your district, because David is creating something that's beautiful. And I'm so pumped for the work that you're doing, David. I can't wait to connect with you again, hopefully collaborate in some way, because you are doing, like I said, just amazing work. You have a passion, a love that is overflowing, and it's very evident when talking with you. And so, yeah, with that, I'm just so excited for the future, but also so appreciative of your time today and being on Aspire to Lead.
Man, I have to say this because of the words that just came out of your mouth, talking about the future. And this is for everybody listening to this podcast. The best advice I've ever heard is the future is decided by what you do in this moment. Don't wait. I'll wait till, 3 years from now, or I'll wait till this arbitrary time in the future. What you do each present moment will determine your future. That is it, Aspire to Lead Nation. What are you doing in each moment? If you're saying this is your goal, this is what you want to be as an educator, as a spouse, as a, community member, are the actions you do in each moment, are they leading you to that perceived destiny?
Yeah. And if you need support in that, obviously David and I are here for you. David, it's been a blessing, seriously, to be in your presence, to have this time with you. And again, I just want to thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Once again, I'm honored, Josh. Thank you, Aspire to Lead Nation. This guy's amazing. Keep listening, keep doing what he tells y'all to do, because this man is great. He, and that's the thing. I would be remiss if I didn't say this. Every chapter of the book has that affirmation. You have greatness inside of you. And, we all know affirmation is a positive quote that you say to yourself, but I need you to say it to yourself enough that you start to believe it. Because when you believe that you have greatness inside of you, the way that you show up in the world will change for the better. I promise you. This is psychology. This is positive psychology. This is research-based. The way you talk to yourself matters, and it creates your reality.
I think that's a perfect way to end this episode.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. We'll see you on the next episode.